Carter and Kat Kamek, along with former Congressman David Jolly. We begin with Rick and U.S. Representatives Carter and Lawson joining us virtually. Congressman Lawson is in Tallahassee. Congressman, how do you feel about what's happened in the past 2 Wednesdays with the Capitol attack and then the House voting to impeach President Trump, blaming him for the siege?
You know, it was incomprehensible. No one would think that the Capitol was supposed to be the safest place in America and really around the world, and that a mob that was led by the president would be able to take over Congress and put members of Congress, House and Senate members in jeopardy. And so it is something that I never envisioned in my 4 years of serving in Congress that I would see anything like that. And it really, members didn't feel protected because of what really happened. And they were not prepared to deal with it, security. And there was other people involved. You know, they knew exactly what they were doing and where they were going. And so it's really incredible that people, some women, we have more women elected to Congress than ever before, and many women was very frightened that they come here and the Congress and they were not protected.
Yeah. What about you, Congressman Carter? How do you feel about what happened? And clearly everyone, regardless of party, seems to be horrified by this.
Well, and they should be. Look, what happened with the protesters, the rioters on January 6th was despicable, and I condemn it. And I think all of us condemn it, whether you're Republican, an independent, or a Democrat. This is not the way that we need to be doing business in the United States. We saw it this past summer. We saw what happened in our major metropolitan areas, Minneapolis and Portland, with the riots, with the looting, with the destruction. They serve no useful purpose whatsoever. And certainly what happened at the Capitol served no useful purpose whatsoever. And it actually takes the focus away from the issue itself. You know, what they were protesting earlier this summer, social injustice, Black Lives Matters, those are important issues that need to be talked about in our country. Election integrity is an important issue that needs to be talked about in our country. That's why the looting and the destruction, that serves no useful purpose whatsoever. And I will say that those who were responsible need to be prosecuted to the highest level of the law, and they need to be put in jail.
Congressman Lawson, last Wednesday, you voted in favor of impeachment, and of course, the president was impeached. And one of the primary purposes of impeachment is to remove someone from office. Well, this Wednesday, 3 days from now, President Trump will no longer be president. So my question is, why move forward with impeachment when the president will be out of office at the time of his trial?
Well, I think it's very important simply because the president took an oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States for foreigners and domestic. And he did not do that. He called a rally. You know, this was a formality of counting the electoral college votes. And he called a rally. And he told the mob that he was going to join them at the Capitol. And he chickened out, and he did not join them. And then at the same time, the vice president had to be hustled off to a disclosed place. This should not have happened. Security was not provided, and there was a repeated calls to the president telling him to call these people off. And it was at the last moment when he said, well, we shouldn't do this and do that. He cannot serve the American people anymore. And so we really needed to remove him. And whether you're Democrat or Republican, no matter what your philosophy is, this should have never happened. How would the president of the United States let a mob come down and take over the Capitol and put all these people at risk?
Congressman Carter, let me ask you a question. On Wednesday, you voted against impeachment, and a number of Republicans pointed out they felt it could divide the country. It wasn't in the best interest of the country. Laying that aside, my question to you is this. Was the conduct of the president impeachable? Did he, in his speech at noon, did he, what he did with Vice President Pence, encouraging him to overturn those electoral votes from the states, and his course of conduct, do you believe the president bears responsibility for what happened? Did he commit an impeachable offense on the merits?
You know, I don't know that it rises to the level of an impeachable offense. I think the president probably could have toned down his remarks some, and I suspect he understands that as well. But the point still remains is that the actions of the individuals, they have to be responsible for that. You know, actions have consequences. We all teach our children that, and these people need to understand that their actions are going to have consequences. And you know, you can't control someone else's actions. You can only control your actions. But certainly, impeachment is the last thing we need at this point. Our country is divided. We need to come together. We don't need to be fanning the flames. We don't need to be putting salt in the wound right now. We've got less than a week before this president will be out of office and before Joe Biden will be president, Kamala Harris will be vice president. And I commit to you that I'm going to work with them. I'm going to do my best to find common ground and move this country forward.
Well, I appreciate that, Congressman Carter. There are several people who have said, not my president. When it came to President Trump, I was going to ask you if Mr. Biden would be your president. It sounds like you're saying yes, right?
Well, and that's important to note because you are absolutely right, Kent. For the last 4 years, the Democrats have done nothing but reject this president. You know, everybody talks about how the Republicans voted to not certify electoral votes from certain states. Well, let's remember that in 2017, that the Democrats actually objected to more states than we did as Republicans this time. Not only that, but here we go again with trying to impeach this president. The Democrats have never accepted that Donald J. Trump was president of the United States. I'm not going to follow that example. I'm going to set my own example. I'm going to do my best to work with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, find common ground, and move this country forward.
Well, one of the things Congressman Lawson has told me and lived up to it many times, sir, you said, hey, I'm willing to cross party lines and work for the betterment of the people that we represent. I want to talk a little bit before we run out of time about what's coming up this week, inauguration. And the entire National Mall is going to be closed on Inauguration Day, only accessible by security personnel and news organizations. We've got some video here that shows some barriers being installed. And it's significant because the mall is the place where traditionally the general public goes and views the inauguration. At the Capitol, they do it from a distance. Often on those large Jumbotron screens. I've been there, and it's going to be such a different kind of inauguration this year. Final comments, I guess, in this segment for each of you. Congressman Lawson, what do you hope, what do you expect in these early days to see from this new administration as the president becomes Joe Biden?
Well, Joe Biden has already stated that he's going to be the president for the people. Whether the Democrat, Republican, Independents, whatever. And that's good because we needed that. And I think that the country is divided. But the president caused a lot of this, you know, and I've always recognized him as a president. The president caused a lot of diversity and conflict between members all over the place. And I served under Republican governors, Republican House and Senate here in Florida. And we never had that kind of problem. We can always come together to make things happen. But when you have someone in the Oval Office, someone that's going to be very vindictive and cause all of these problems, then it's going to spread out, not only in Congress, but throughout America. And that's what we have. And so we need a lot of healing that is going to take place, and someone that will stand up there and say, we're going to be president. The president called that rally. And his kids talked at rally, and his lawyers and everybody say what they were going to do. And then he went against the vice president if he didn't do what he wanted him to do. So, you know, we have to be honest and say exactly what happened. The president is not fit for office. And I'm glad that he's leaving because he has created almost like a civil war in America. And we really don't need that. We're an embarrassment, not only in the United States, but throughout the world. Yeah. And it should not be like that.
Congressman Carter, let me let you get the last word here. What's your best hope for the first 100 days of a Joe Biden administration?
Well, what I hope it does not happen is that I hope the Democrats don't overreach, and I'm sure that they will. We've seen it already. President-elect Biden has already offered a $1.9 trillion plan that's going to include $15 an hour minimum wage, that's going to include money to bail out municipalities and cities and that have mismanaged their pension funds and has nothing to do with the pandemic whatsoever. That's what we're going to see in the first 100 days. If this is the first piece of legislation, I dare not hold my breath to see what else is going to be coming behind it.
Well, I knew you would have different views, but that's what people wanted to hear, is what your views were on such an incredible, memorable, unforgettable time in our nation's history. Buddy Carter and Al Lawson, members of the House of Representatives. Rick Mullaney will stay with us, but